Oh, we played so much that the guitar went ever so slightly out of tune. Hi folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison. It is the Monday Guitar Show. It's Monday. We're doing the thing we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk about the guitar. Hi, welcome on board. It's great to have you. I am, of course, your host, Nick Jennison. You guys already knew that, but I wanted to say I am your host because I saw loads of other people saying it, and I'm like, why am I not saying that? I should tell people I'm the host, even though we know I'm the host. Anyway, listen, hey, it's great to have you on board. If you're a new viewer, welcome. We do this every Monday. We hang out and talk about the guitar. Our current subject is layering guitars. Well, kind of recording guitars in a more specific sense, a more general sense, but we're talking about layering guitars today because last week we did a stream where we kind of did a crash course on recording like rock chorus guitars. Not chorus the effect, but chorus the how do we make a chorus sound big in a song? And I've had a few questions since then about what did you do with those layers that you were demonstrating? If you're wondering what layers are, don't worry, all will become clear in the fullness of time. But anyway, if you're new, welcome on board. If you're a returning streamer, hey, welcome back. It is great to see you. We would be very lonely doing these without you guys, so it's lovely to have our returning cadre of streamers who we're going to say hello to in just a second. First of all, though, what do you guys think about the new look? We've changed a few things about the studio. It's not hugely different, but, you know, I think the look is different. I think it looks a little nicer, perhaps a little bit more easy to focus on, let's say. You can maybe see me a little more clearly, and you can still see all the cool gear in the background because we love gear. Pat Finity had some fantastic things to say about that, where he was like, I need more gear, and then maybe people take me as seriously as Beato. Well, you know, we're giving El Rick a run for his money with amp heads, and with number of guitars, maybe? I don't think so. He's got tons of guitars, but he's got tons of money as well. What am I talking about? Rick Beato's great. Anyway, listen, thank you so much for coming on board. We're going to say some hellos. Before we do, though, a little bit of housekeeping. Today's stream is, of course, brought to you by Guitar Interactive Magazine and licklibrary.com. Go to licklibrary.com for all of your guitar lesson requirements and lessons you will need, because we all need a little bit of educational material to keep the cogs turning. Myself, I've had a bit of a guitar slump lately in terms of my physical ability on the instrument. I've been focusing on other things. I've been doing a lot of producing, a lot of kind of recording guitars for folks, and it's kind of taken a little bit of a toll on the old lead guitar business. So I've actually been revisiting some of my own courses, egotistical as that might seem, but I put these courses together because it's the practice material that I actually use. So I've been revisiting some of my own courses, specifically my speed builder, which is available on licklibrary.com, but that's not really relevant to today's lesson. Today's lesson, we're going to talk about a series of courses that first appeared in Guitar Interactive Magazine, where you can go for news, reviews, interviews, and all of the other good stuff, gear, artists, anything that's not lesson-based. Guitar Interactive. Anything lessony, go to licklibrary.com, sign up, it's great. Guitar Interactive, go there, it's free, go check it out. But yeah, these lessons first appeared in guitarinteractivemagazine.com. They're now available on Lick Library. It's Michael Caswell's Pro Concepts column. Links will be down below. It is an invaluable source of information from, in my opinion, one of the best to do it. R.I.P. Michael Caswell, a true gent and just a phenomenal guitar player, right? I was lucky enough to meet him once, and he was tremendous, just the best dude. So sorely missed, great lessons linked down below. Anyway, we're going to say some hellos. Let's see who's first through the door. Of course, it is Marcin. Marcin, it's lovely to see you. Hello, Nick. Hi, guys. It looks like it's my new favorite series. Lots of practical information from a true professional. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I'm really enjoying putting this together as well. We've definitely got at least one more in these where we talk about some soloing stuff, but to be honest, it's quite nice to take a bit of a break from the soloing thing and talk about some rhythm guitar work, talk about some of the stuff that gets the bills paid, so to speak. Sacred God Slayers in the house, lovely to see you. Response Audio is here, says, hi Nick, hi guys, hope you're having a great Monday. I'm indeed having a great Monday. It's been pretty good so far. The bougie Victory amp that was sitting behind us had to go home, unfortunately. I've done a video that is pending on that. I won't tell you any more about that, but it's a great amp, super, super cool. I'll tell you more about the bougie amp another time. It's chef's kiss. PJ is in the house, says, it was great last Monday, looking forward to this a lot. Thanks, man. I've been playing mainly in the key of jazz this week. I play in the key of jazz every time I sit down and play, but not always on purpose. With Tom Quayle's Beginner Jazz Rhythm. Great course, very cool. If anybody wants to check out some rhythm guitar stuff, or specifically some chord stuff, or you want to get your jazz comping on, that's a really great place to start. Four Cornish is in the house. Tim with the Appling is here. Helmet Strap is in the house. Larry Warren's here, Mark Crandall's tuning in, Cranky Tom's tuning in from somewhere in the world. Great stuff last week, which I can apply to my recordings. I'm looking forward to part 2. Well, fingers crossed, we'll have some good stuff for you today. I'm going to show you some of my approaches to guitar layering today. Mike Seedoff is in the house. Great to have you on board. Ergo Hogg is here. Daryl Queen is here. Last week's lesson was so informative. Looking forward to more. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Felipe is in the house. Miguel is tuning in. The name that I keep butchering, Dr. 34 M5. XX is either side. No guitar for me today. MSC submission next week. That is super cool, man. Very, very, very cool. What's he specialty? I'd love to know. But yeah, join on my laptop as always. Great to see you. Great to have you on board. Hopefully there's some stuff that you can take away from this. Remember, you can always watch this in the playback if you so desire. Raphael or Raphael, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, is tuning in from Mayan Territorio in Turtle Island. Very cool. Alan Brooker is in the house. Alan, great to see you. Cranky Tom says, where is the monkey? The monkey being Princeton, the Vibro Chimp. He is taking a little bit of a break from the set right now. I'm just seeing how I like it without that big splash of yellow. Timothy Appling says, I like the new studio vibes. I like it too, man. Marl Riley says, Nick, is your equipment on the shelves always hooked up and ready to use, or is it just for storage? At the moment, most of it is storage. They're not all hooked up right now, but it's quite easy to hook any of it up. It's just a couple of cables. What I haven't done is I haven't got around to buying an amp switcher yet, and I keep humming and hawing about it so I can have them all switched on. But truthfully, I get so many of my tones from the Super Kraken that I don't know. I kind of just use that for the most part. But lots of it is hooked up. Obviously, the guitars are ready to go at any given time, but it's not at a point where I can just flip a switch and go to any given amp at any given moment. But, you know, it's one of those. Pete Oscar's tuning in from Newton Aycliffe, round the corner. Hey, magic. Love a bit of that. The name I keep butchering, MSc in Geosciences and Climatology. We need more of you, man. We need more of those guys. Fantastic. Really, really cool stuff. Let's get into the meat of today's session. So, last week, I'm going to share my screen with you guys real quick. If you bear with me just one moment. We've got a screen showing. I might have to rename my account, he says. That's really funny. Don't show the tips again. Go away, go away, go away. StreamYard is trying to make me do some weird and wonderful stuff. Okay, here we go. Here is my Logic project from last week. This is the track that we started playing around with last week where we were... doing a little bit of recording, and we did some layering stuff, and there were many questions because I kind of breezed over it, but let me show you what we've got going on here. So the drums are from a project I've been working on recently with the band Crowley. If you guys are following Lick Library's social media, if you know Eliza, who is the young woman doing the social media playing stuff. Great player, super cool as well. This is her band, so I've been lucky enough to produce her band a bunch of times. The drums are from her band. The rest of the stuff is not her band's worth. So this is my friend Sav playing his little Italian heart out, absolutely crushing it on this groove. I've just stolen the groove so I could have some live drums to play with. So here's our drums. I laid down some really simple bass. Nothing overly complicated here. We parked ourselves down some big slabs of rhythm guitar. If we get rid of the bass and just listen to the rhythms, that's what we have. I can hear some tuning irregularities there, but that's fine. So it's my producer head going on. We did do it in a hurry, so it's okay. Now, we did throw some layers on top, and there were a couple of them. The first of which was this guy, this absolutely obnoxious sounding bit up the middle. We're going to kind of assume that that is taken care of. So let's assume that we have this rhythm section. Let me just highlight the obnoxious guy in the middle. And if we bring everything else back in, let's take the obnoxious guy away. Now that little obnoxious fella in the center, which Joe Barisi refers to as an enforcer guitar, it's a brilliant trick for playing with a really super, super nasty sound. We dialed in an absolutely horrible sound, filtered it like crazy. I think I took most of the low end out. We've got, hopefully you guys can see this. I'll just have to quickly change the way I'm sharing this. Bear with me one moment, because for some reason, entire screen. Let's just do the whole screen, because otherwise it's not going to let me show you my plugins. So yeah, we've got this guy here. This is an SSL channel strip. I'll just make myself small because you don't need to see me right now. We're filtering out a load of low end. Oh, actually, we're not doing too much filtering. It must have been nasty at source. Even still. So we did all that stuff last week. If you want to know a little bit more about recording guitars, go check it out last week. We did all of this stuff DI as well, with an amp and some impulse responses. But we also had these parts. Now, these are the bits we're interested in. These are some layers that we can talk about. And I'm going to give you several approaches that we can take with this today. This is one of them. Now, this layer is what you might call, you could call it a lead part. You could call it, it's not an ostinato. We'll get to an ostinato in a second. But you might call it something like, I don't know, like a high arpeggio part. I might just call it the tinkle part. If I was labeling it in my own session, I'd call it the tinkly tinkly. It sounds like this on its own. If it ever comes in, here we go. We've also been known to refer to these parts as the hedge for obvious reasons. So we'll pull that back up. That's a good example of one of the parts we're talking about. If I lay this in with my rhythm guitar, now we can have this as a really prominent part that really sits as the forefront of our mix. We can have it just as a little bit of texture at the very back end, depending upon what it is we want to do. I'm going to get rid of this guy too. And we'll talk about crafting this first, because these are one of my favorite types of layer parts, but there are lots of other layer approaches we're going to talk about today, but this is one of them. I've literally just labeled it layer. If you can see there on screen, right up here, it just says layer, but we don't necessarily want to think about it as the only layer. Let's talk about crafting this. So we've got a little bit of a conundrum here in terms of what notes we play, what tones we use. And we're going to start with the notes thing. I'm going to switch to a slightly more civilized tone because what we have right now is quite big, and I'll probably turn the delay off as well. I'm also going to take a quick second to tune. For some reason, since I've been gigging this guitar, it is now refusing to stay in tune for reasons that I can't quite fathom. Although when I'm in producer mode, I get hypersensitive about tuning, which is quite annoying, but never mind. Okay, so we've got a series of chords here, and they're largely just power chords. The chords in question are as follows. We're going to go to the hands cam so I can show you this, and I'll just run through it together with you. So, hands cam in question, we probably don't need the extra me there. I'll probably just do this for the time being. So our chords are thus. If we just go drums and rhythms, it's an F, a G, an A, presumably A minor, F, D, F again, and G. Now this gives us plenty of options, tons of options with which to craft some interesting sounding layers. But once again, those chords F, G, A minor, F, D, F, G. We'll take each one of these at a time, but a few ways we could play this. We could start by taking the approach of not really contributing to any additional harmony, just trying to layer on some extra stuff on top of these chords, just some bigness above, if that makes sense. And the way we could do this is by continuing to play the notes that are already in the chord. So the notes that are already in a chord, these are power chords. So we're playing roots and fifths exclusively. We'll memorize those chords as we go. So we'll come back to the project in a second. So if we have a root and a fifth, what we get is we get over our F, we have, let's have the extra me as well. We're going to have Fs and Cs, Gs and Ds for our Gs, As and Es for our A, and then for our D, Ds and As. Now we could literally just take a power chord and play that. Now we could play it as follows. We could play it in position. We could play it up the octave. If I can get the guitar to stay in tune, that would help. So there is an octave of our F, an octave of our G, an octave of our A. We could just play that as it stands with just guitars and drums. We'd get Now the D, we could go here. Now, that's not really adding a great deal in terms of the harmony, but it is adding a little bit of a lift in terms of the energy of the song. We've looked at this big meat on the bottom. If I bring this in halfway through, this is without. Listen how that energy lifts. Basically the same thing, right? Basically the same deal. Now, ways we could stick with this without adding any additional harmony is we could play with a different rhythm. We could play by arpeggiating these chords, or we could play with a strum. And there's two ways we could approach this. We could either do something like this, but we take each chord and play low, high, and play them as ostinati like that. It's not really an ostinato. Or we could play both work pretty well. So let's take a listen to both. Here it is with the alternating low-high thing. With a strum, we get now that is possibly the most basic approach that we could take to layering these guitars, but it works. It adds a little bit of extra bonus energy to it. And the plus point with this is if you don't want to add too much flavor to what you've already got, then you know you can do this and you can lift the energy without really having to worry too much about like changing stuff. You haven't turned it into a new chord progression. It's still the same power chords, still power chords all the way, and it makes a little bit of space, it lifts the energy, it's nice. But there are lots of other ways we can approach this. So strum is like posh pink. Yeah, I can totally agree with that, right? It's like posh pink, or it might be like pop punk. Either way. So yeah, pink is probably a good analogy for this. It definitely has that kind of like pop rock thing going on. Now, in terms of tones, we could differentiate between the rhythm guitar that we're playing and the lead guitar that we're playing just by choosing a different amp sound or a different cab sound, for example. Cabs are normally a good way to go. So at the moment, I'll show you my speaker setup right now. Using an IR, we have this guy up here. This is a 4x12 with greenbacks in a classic 4x12 cab, but I could change that up to something like, let's see where my AC 15 is at. So what I'll do here is I'll switch between the greenback cab. Let's find that again. There's modern greenbacks. Yeah, that'll do, greenback modern. And then I'll switch that up to the, yeah, greenback modern up to the AC. And we'll see how we like that. Oh, that's actually a different one, yeah. Greenback, AC. Okay, cool. Keep your eyes on that along the side. Here we go. So this is with the strum with the similar kind of cab sound. So we go like this. It's like posh pink. It could be like posh pink though, right? PJ has said lol punk, meaning punk, not pink. But yeah, kind of pink, kind of punk. You know, Pink the artist for sure. Okay, let's just grab that and we'll throw it back on the screen. Here is my cab. That's what we're keeping an eye on. Let's go with us. Okay, same cab, or same-ish cab. 4x12 sort of stuff. Let's go to an AC. Notice how that really pops out. So that's quite cool. So what we can do with this when it comes to kind of making some space with our tone, we can take a couple of different approaches here. We can either blend we can use basically the same kind of tone if we want these two layers to merge with each other, or if we want them to be very distinct, if we want it to be its own thing, we can reach for a different cab, and that's probably the best way to do it, I think. This is going to sound slightly heretical, sat in a room full of amps and a room full of guitars, but I think the best way to differentiate this is usually with the speaker cabinet, because the cab, especially with gain, has such a huge impact on the frequency content. Not so much the feel or the dynamic of what you're playing, but definitely in terms of the frequency stuff. So here is a one from Mike Seedorf. Mike Seedorf saying, have used the cab sim in the Blackstar HT venues. How does it compare to the one you're using now? I haven't. I can't say I have. I'm sure it's great. I've used a couple of Blackstar cab sims. Used the ones in St. James. It's very good. I'm assuming it's very similar. But what I will say with the Blackstar stuff is it feels like it's very tailored towards live use, and live cab sims are a little different to what you want in the studio. So as a quick example on this, I'll show you the difference between my my studio cab sim and my live cab sim. So I used impulse responses for this for the most part. So very quickly, let's pop myself here. This is, we'll go to the solo labeled one. So solo over here, I've got my I would normally reach for something like this, maybe. This is, I'm actually going to save that because that's what I was using before. I decided I quite liked that earlier on. So this would be an example of my my live cab sim. It's quite focused in the mid-range. It really kind of like punches through. There's not too much low end. An example of a studio cab sim might be something more like this, where I maybe do a little more high-end, quite a lot more high-end in fact. We could maybe even go so far as to take a look at something like this. So my experience of Blackstar stuff anyway is that it's been quite flattering for live use, which I like, and that's cool. But I've found myself maybe wanting a little more in the top end when it comes to studio stuff. But that's quite unpleasant live. It's a volume thing. In the studio, the guitars are generally quieter. We generally don't listen to studio recordings at the same volumes we listen to gigs. And those high frequencies get fatiguing very quickly at gig volumes, but they're okay at studio volumes. We like them. Helmus Rap says, how do you stop the strumming noise in the track? Pick noise if you get the drift. You can do this a couple of different ways. A good way to do it is with your pick angle. So very quickly, if we go to these two cams, if I go here and I play with quite a flat pick angle, and digging quite hard with quite an aggressive pick grip, we get a lot of clickety-clickety-click going on, whereas if I angle my pick like this a little more, use a looser pick grip, this is quite a chirpy pick, this is a flow. So yeah, that's quite good fun. That's probably how I do it. Loosen up the pick grip, angle the pick. Clack. No clack. That kind of helps. One more question and then we'll get onto some more layering stuff. Timothy Appling is saying, do you ever use fret wraps for high distortion, lead, or tapping? Never live. I just don't like them. You know, like this thing around here, I'm like, Hendrix didn't have one, I'm not using one. But in the studio, anything goes, you know, I think it's fair game. But also, I feel like a little bit of handling noise, certainly live, is part of the personality of a guitar. I think in metal it's a little different, but I think in most other styles, a little bit of handling noise is kind of okay. If you listen to some isolated Steve Lukather guitar parts, for example, there's a load of handling noise, and Steve Lukather sounds great, so who am I to judge, right? Who am I to judge? If it's good enough for Luke, it's good enough for me. So cool. Anyway, on to some more layering approaches. So that's one thing. We talked about this idea of maintaining the chords value, but what if we start to push away from the chords value a little bit and start to maybe impart some value? Well, the next most obvious place that we can reach for some imparted value on a power chord without having to drastically change what's going on is we can reach for a ninth. Now, the chords in question, if you don't remember, were Fs, Gs, and As. That would give us the following. So we would have root fifth, that's our F. Ninth would be up here. That string, which is still out of tune, come on, string, behave yourself. Are you too warm? Are you too cold? Come on, talk to me. Yeah, this note here in this case is going to be a C note. So we have, not a C note rather, what am I talking about? It's a G note. C note, G note. F's, C's, G's. Similarly, G, D, A. A, E, B. And then when we go to our D, D, A, E. Now ninths are quite fun because ninths are basically a power chord built on top of the power chord. So if we play root and fifth, and then we take that and build a fifth again on top, we get a ninth. Now ninths are pretty cool because they don't impart a great deal of unique value. It's not adding a third onto things. I'll show you how we can play with thirds in a second. But this gives us some options for adding a little bit of value to the chord, a little bit of flavor to the chord, without really drastically changing a great deal. So if I play some power chords first, I'll do the picking thing, and then I'll do ninth the second time around. You'll see what difference it makes. Ninth this time. Now, just by doing that, we've added a little bit of extra kind of character and a bit of extra thickness to our power chord, but we haven't radically changed things. We haven't really gone to town by adding any additional notes in. And we're still using the same approach of pick or strum. This is all pretty standard stuff, but what if we start to throw in some more additional notes? What if we start to look for thirds? So thirds are really cool. Daryl Queen's saying Queensryche flavor there. Absolutely, 100%, right? If you get the right sound on, maybe throw a chorus on top, it's Queensryche City. Do I have a chorus? Let's see if I've got one in my little box of tricks up here. It's got a flanger, got a very strange sounding rotary, tremolo, let's maybe go here. Yeah, chorus. Quite an aggressive chorus as well. Yeah, I can hear Jeff Tate singing about how cross he is about something or another just immediately. That is super cool, right? Really, really cool reference. And you hear that a lot in Queensryche's harmony. It has quite a cold sound that I really, really like. It's a very fun sound, but it's also one that's compatible with lots of distortion. But we can throw some thirds in there too. So thirds and sevenths and ninths and all this sort of stuff. When we start to combine thirds and sevenths in particular, we really start to go to town on the flavor of the chord. So let's go looking for some thirds. The thirds in question. In our F, we have an A. Over our G, we have a B. Over our A, we have a C. And over our D, well, we've got options. It could be a D minor, we can play the F. It can be D major, we can play the F sharp. And we get to pick, right? So we get to go here, here, here. Let's clean that up a bit. And then here, and either here, or here to here, if we want some modal interchange, or neither, here to the ninth. It's fine. If you want to leave that D up to the listener's imagination, you can do that too. Let's throw in some fifths, some thirds rather. And the way I'm going to get these thirds is by taking another strumming approach, but this time instead of playing the ostinato-y thing, what I'm going to play is I'm going to play an octave. So there's an octave here, there's my A. I'll play the octave in the highest two strings. There's A, there's high A. That's if I want to do minor. That's if I want to do major, I'll decide on the moment. So, quick comparison, here we go. Straight power chords. Just adding something in. Let's go ninths. Ninths sound cool. Let's hit the thirds with some octaves. That's fun, I like that. Let's maybe go a little lower pitched. Ooh, got lost. On we go. Now, that little example where I sort of started going to town a bit there is where we start to get a little bit more interesting with these octave parts. Now, octave parts can be an awful lot of fun, but they don't have to be, and this goes true for the other parts we've been playing as well, they don't have to be just limited to literally just playing one thing over each chord. We can play little melodies, and we can play little things that give us some tension and some release over each chord. Let's say, for example, we try to chart ourselves a melody through this chord progression. What we can do is we can use these octaves to hit various parts of the chord based on the flavor we want. If we want it to be fairly static, just kind of be power chordy, we can hit roots and fifths. If we want it to be that cold Queensryche kind of flavor, we can hit the ninth. If we want it to be kind of melodic and a bit more, not poppy, that's not right the word, but maybe a bit more like emotive, like traditionally harmonious, if you want to call it that, we can hit the third. We can also hit the third and sus4 and back again. That works really well. So if it's A, for example, if we get this A, when we're saying that because we've got an open A string, if we play the third, we can go up with the sus4 and down again. So let's find a way through this. If we start with our F, we can decide that we want the melodic sounding third over that. So the third in this case is going to be A. So that's what we'll play there. And if you guys have your guitars, you can play this part with me. Now let's say when I go to the G, let's say I don't want that to go up. I could go looking for another note down over. That could be my G. But would you look at that, there's a G there. And then for the A, I could play the bare sounding power chord, which is my E. Then when it's time for the F again, I could try and hit the fifth, or the ninth rather, which would be G, which would lead me to the third over that D. So far we've got this, it's a bit complicated, but this third over the F, root over the G, fifth over the A, ninth over the second F, third over the D, third here, staying on that note, which becomes the ninth of the G. Check this out, see how this changes the flavor as we go from one chord to another. What I'll do is I'll start by hitting just power chord notes, then I'll hit just ninths, then I'll hit just thirds, then I'll do that little blend that we did there. So just power chord notes to begin with, roots or fifths. Sounds nice, blends in really well. Okay, just ninths. Very Queensryche, very bare sounding. Just thirds, here we go. Super harmonious, very sweet. Okay, let's do the blended approach here, where it moves from sweet to open and bare, sparse, sweet, sweet, And again, cold and Queensryche. That's really interesting because this layer part has given us the capacity to impart a new series of emotions and a new journey musically that this chord progression can take based upon how we want each chord to sound. It's just power chords. And we're not changing the chord's flavour. We're not turning a major chord into a minor chord, apart from that D, where we decided to do a little bit of modal interchange. But just by choosing which chord tones we want to emphasise with our layer, we can do all sorts of cool stuff. Right, all manner of stuff in there, and we can create a journey, not just in terms of the direction of the notes that we're playing. That's a thing too. We get to thread a melody through our piece, but we also get to choose the emotive quality of each chords. Now, notice, regular viewers on this, notice how similar this is to when you're playing soloing ideas, and you highlight certain chord tones on chord changes. This is the same thing. It's the same deal. If you've ever sat and gone, well, I'm a pop rock player, or I'm a rock player, or a country player, or whatever, I don't need to know all that jazz chord changes stuff. You do, because this is where it comes and bears fruit. Myself, I spent many years studying jazz. I went to university, did a degree, got to the end of it, and I didn't actually finish my degree the first time around. I finished it later in life, when I was 30, of all things, so I could teach in universities. But yeah, I went and did my degree, and got to the end of it, and I was like, enough, no jazz. For me, it is now all rock all the time. I think I heard T-Rex, and I was like, oh, fucking hell, I love this. This. I just want to play this. I want to go. Ow! That's me. I'm like, yeah, give me marble and all day, every day. And jazz was alien to me. But then all this sort of stuff, or jazz was dead to me at least, but all this stuff came back to roost as we went forward. So anyway, we've hit thirds, we've hit fourths, not fourths, we've hit power chord tones, which I guess you can sort of include the fourth. I guess you include fourth and ninth in a different subset of tones as well. You could call those suspensions, I guess. So you can create this suspended kind of sound, this triad sound, or this dyad power chord type sound. Either way, they all sound pretty great, and they all have their own unique thing going on. But it's not just single octave notes or power chords or any of this stuff that we can start to thread layers with. We can also thread layers by looking for maybe 2 or 3 note high parts. Now, an example of that, if I improvise one for you right now, let me just see if I can improv this and see if we can create something cool. Maybe I'll do the picky. Yeah, that'll work. Now, what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and create a part that is reasonably static and is maybe a little bit ostinato-ish, but not like a full-on ostinato. We'll talk about that in a second. Got some more ideas for you on this. This is just some harmonic stuff for now. Let's maybe try a little bit of this. I'm going to play it for you, and then we'll dissect what's going on here. So if I go, oh, come on, behave. Let's play the track. Now that's quite a cool part. I really like that. If we throw some delay on top of that, it's going to be tremendous. Now what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for ways to maneuver through the chords by selecting just a couple of notes from each chord. And I'm also trying to select it based on the value that I'm trying to add or not add to each chord. So the first thing I'm doing here, slightly off topic, but do you have a favourite chord, says our MSc candidate. I do in fact have a favourite chord. My favourite chord is the Al Di Meola B6. It's the single worst chord to play in your entire life, but if you're ever called to pose for a magazine, this is the chord to play. So called because Al Di Meola used to pose for magazines playing that chord. The tab, if you want to call it that, is 7, 6, 4, 1, open. And if you can believe it, and the E string we don't play. If you can believe it, the open is the worst one to get, because getting that up on its tip, Nightmare. Looks absolutely ridiculous. You've probably seen me do that on a bunch of DVD covers as well, because it's a fun chord. So I actually do have a favourite chord. It's the Al Di Meola B6, and it's friggin' ridiculous. Al, what are you trying to do to us? I'm on the clean sound. We'll get to the clean sound in a second. In fact, I might stay on the clean sound for this, because this works quite well on the clean sound. And maybe leads me on to doing some cleans, which is quite good fun. Yeah, my thoughts exactly, right? Horrible chord. So, the way I thread through this is, our first chord is F, F major. I'm playing root and third, because I want to add that sweetness to the chord. Sounds nice. Let's maybe turn the delay on as well, actually. And we'll tap the delay tempo. This delay is not like super prominent. For my G, a couple of places that go here. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for ways to... That's quite good fun. I can maybe go here, so I can keep this note, and this note becomes the 9th of G. And I can go there to get root and 9th. So our first two chords could be this, for example. That works really well. We could strum. Works quite nicely in the clean. That's quite a fun chord. But what I might do there is I might change to that. In fact, I'm not sure I'm feeling that clean sound for this. Maybe we'll go here. That's quite cool, with all the delays. And then over the A, I might go here, which is the 3rd and the 5th on bottom, which I could then take to 3rd, 9th, root, if I so desired, which would give us this. Now that is one of my favourite approaches to layering this stuff up, is to find these little melodies that go through the chord changes, and it's kind of dependent on your chord knowledge, but that's what I'm looking for there, is I'm looking for ways to basically move as fewer parts as possible, but also create something evocative. And there's loads of ways you can do this. You could do all of these all at once. You could layer, you know, this idea and also layer some octaves and also... You go to town if you wanted to, but there are lots of other things we can do too. So those are some big, higher layers we can throw on. But there are some other layering approaches we can take as well. And I want to show you some of those as well, because they're fun too. So that's one concept of kind of adding to the chord. It took quite a lot of our time, but it took quite a lot of time to explain. Another thing that we can do with this is we can play something that we might refer to as an ostinato. Response audio in with the questions. If you have questions, by the way, drop them down below, because I'm going to answer as many of them as I can. I'll star them up as we're going. Sacred Godslayer with a really great observation. You can double pick the string with palm muting on the dyads. Certainly can. You can do all sorts of stuff with that, and it sounds really killer. So you could play something. It's great comedy. You can play something. You can almost double pick everything you go. But we've got some great questions. You guys are asking the right questions too. Response audio here saying, any tips if you're trying to add these types of overdubs to a song with vocals or other melody line? You don't want to walk over the vocals when it's done. For sure, 100%. Try and stay out of the vocals register. So if the vocal's kind of a lower mid-range vocal, go high. If it's a higher vocal, go mid-range. Or hit the vocal line. So whatever the vocal line is, hit that on top and make that something you play along. And that can work really well too. Other things, if you're recording, is double track and hard pan. to make space, and I hard pan my guitars always. Like, I'll double track everything. I won't double track solos as a rule. I think it sounds a little strange. I love it when Randy Rhoads triple tracked it, but for me, not much of a fan. I'll maybe do the occasional little bit, but for me, a solo is like a lead vocal, it belongs in the middle. Whereas rhythm guitars, even these kind of lines, hard left and right, pan them out, and it leaves a lot of space down the middle for the vocal. So we can separate it spatially. You can also separate tonally as well. So things you can do is you can look for tones that maybe don't have, if the vocal has quite a strong mid-range, so my own singing voice, I have quite a mid-rangey voice, if that makes sense. So for me, I would look for something like maybe an AC30, where it has a big prominent dip around like 300 hertz, and an Alnico speaker for these sort of things, because that would clear some room for my voice. But if your vocalist is the opposite, if your vocalist has an airy, breathy, toppy type tone, you might look for something more like maybe let's maybe find an example of this, I guess, rather than telling. Let's maybe show. So if we take the example of a couple of speakers I've got going on here, I could reach for this AC type tone with loads on the top end, like this, for quite a mid-rangey voice. You can hear I'm talking over the top, and it sits kind of okay. Like, you can still hear what I'm saying, whereas if I were a breathy area singer, I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'll try, we could maybe do something like this, when we reach for kind of like I guess maybe like a deluxe type speaker sim, where if you have a very airy vocalist, you can hear the airy top end over the top of that. So tonally we can separate spatially, we can also separate in terms of registration as well. So you're asking the right questions. Mal Riley is saying, are you using the notes of each key for each of the chords, or the notes of the key all the chords are in? Yes, to both. Yes, to both. Yeah, I mean, it depends really, to be honest. If the chords are all part of the same key, which often they are, but in this case they're actually not, because we've got a D major chord we've decided to impose, which contains an F sharp, which is from the Dorian mode in the key of A, but we're playing the rest of it in Aeolian. Don't worry too much about that. What I'm trying to do regardless is I'm trying to preferentially pick out the notes of each chord, and then using the notes of the key to drift through those. Similar to if you were soloing, same deal. You would try and hit the chord tones, and then you would use the notes of the key to drift your way through. Daryl Queen saying, do any of these suggestions change if you deal with less gainy tones like chimey cleans or just edge of breakup tones? Yes and no. You can usually use more notes if you have less gainy tones. So if you have something maybe more like this, which is kind of like my breakup tone. My breakup tone is quite loud, but it's also quite fun with a big slap back on. So here I could maybe play a few more notes. You can also lay more effects on. So here I'm playing something like that. Maybe that might work. I feel like that tone's a little congested, so maybe let's try the AC. That's gonna work. Let's try that. I'm also throwing in the major 7th there with the high E. But let's take a listen to that and see how that changes with a slightly less gainy tone. Chimey and all that good stuff. That's probably even a bit too much gain. That's probably about right. So if we go... got lost. Oh no. Yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea. So, same deal, but you can just get away with using a few more notes. Another question about the how do you approach that from a panning in the same situation? Panning the same in that situation? Yes, I do. But this time, what I'll probably do is I'll usually have more variation in either the part or in the tone, either side, if the tone is cleaner. With gainy tones, I tend to like a bit more similarity between the two. So as things get cleaner, you can push more either side. So anyway, we were talking about some other ideas, and we've got a few, so let's go through a couple more. Other things you can do with this is you can use an ostinato. Ostinato is just something that doesn't change. It's just something that goes on and on and on. Examples of ostinati are things like Sweet Child of Mine is an ostinato with some subtle changes. Where's my sound gone? Ooh. The Sweet Child of Flat 9. Ostinato round and round and round. Now our ostinato can be as simple as the Chasing Cars ostinato, where we don't feel any compulsion to change whatsoever. We pick a couple of notes and we let them do whatever they want to do over each chord. You can change if you want to, but I'm not going to. The notes in question, A and E. What does that give us? Third and major seventh over our F, ninth and sixth over our G, root and fifth over our root and fifth over our A, fifth and ninth over our D. And I'm just going to play those and deal with the fact that it sounds tense over that, but that can be really cool to have one thing stay static and other things move around. Let's have a listen. Ostinati, loads of fun. We like ostinati a lot. They sound pretty cool. That's the plural of ostinato, by the way, in the same way that vibrato, the plural is vibrati. So what have we had? We've had power chords. We've had, where we just maintain the power chord and lift the register. We've had a thing where we start to hit the ninths and create that still power chordy, but a bit more open, a bit more suspended kind of tone. We've hit thirds. We've talked about playing octave parts to hit the thirds. We've talked about threading octave melodies. We've talked about threading dyad melodies through. There's our ostinato. A couple of other approaches we can take are ones that I somewhat creatively call wobble and splang. Wobble and splang. Great words. I'm sure you agree, right? Splang we'll start with. What is splang? Splang is something that's really good fun to stick on top, right? Splang basically refers to a chord that goes splang. You'll be familiar with the Strymon splang, I am sure. It's a very particular sound. This one requires a little bit of effects off you, the end user, and probably a different speaker tone than that too, because that's probably not quite the right thing. Got my AC30 on there. I might swap it out for something like this. Just a little bit more something over the top. I might throw my compressor on this. May need to turn it up just a little bit. Very beautiful sound. I'm a big fan of a splang. I do like me a splang. Cue shimmer verb. Shimmer verb's great, right? Little splang can make huge differences. So splangs, what do we do with this? Well, with splangs, we can afford to hit some chord extensions because it's clean and it's high. So what I might do is I might hit this chord over the F. That gives me 5th, major 7th, sharp 11. Over the G, I might hit maybe, not sure I like that. I might hit this chord. Root, 5th, root, 9th. And I may hit that again over the A. And then over the D, I may hit this. Why not? That's going to be 9, 5th, root. We're not worried about the specifics. I'm going to pick a tone that gives me, ooh, that's nice, middle position. Middle position on a 2-humbucker guitar, especially with PAFs, is surprisingly good for this stuff, right? Splang, splang, splang again, and then splang, 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 splang. I like the splangs to be one hit and stop, but you can splang in other ways. big fan of a splang. Let's throw it on and see how it sounds. I'll give myself a little lead in for this so you can hear the splang. Now that, layered in very subtly, missed one. If we bring our layer in, we already recorded, we like that. It's a little somewhere between our ostinato and our little diads thread. I'll throw the splang on top. Give myself a lead in. So much fun. We love a splang. Doesn't have to be a super obvious thing. It's just a way of getting a little bit of tinkly high end on the top end. By contrast, another thing we can do in the middle is we can do the wobble. And wobbles are great fun. Wobbles are where we just take anything that goes wobble, like tremolo, or a lovely aggressive chorus. Flanges phases work quite well. I'm going to run with tremolo. I think we did tremolo last week. A favorite of mine is Chris Davis saying splang is better offset, not in time. Well, that depends on whether you want the splang to be part of the chord and just part of the almost like a cymbal crash at the start, or whether you want it to be something that's a feature part. If it's a feature part, I agree. But if it's something that's just a blend with the chord, in time can be really nice. You can also do it in time with the snare drum. I'll just go back to the splang very quickly. So splangs can be quite cool as like a little snare offset, and it's almost like the Lars crash, where it'll go doom doom ga doom 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 ga doom doom bum psh doom doom ga doom doom ga psh doom doom on like 2 and 4. It's weird, but it works. We can splang out of time. Splang can sound pretty cool out of time, like this. Oh, that's definitely not a splang. I appear to have hit the fuzz instead of the preset. There's my splang preset. Here we go. Yeah, I like that. It's really good. That can be good fun. It depends whether you want it to be a feature or a blend. But going back to the wobble very quickly, let's do tremolo wobble. Tremolo wobble's cool. A favorite of mine, I can't reach my pedals to do it, otherwise I would go and pull them out of the pedal drawer and rig them up. But a favorite of mine for wobble is vibrato. The vibrato, the effect, not vibrato, the technique. But yeah, that can be really good fun. Some vibrato. It's just another way of making the chord go or something like that. And wobble layers are normally, in my opinion, best put somewhere in the mid-range. I like to throw a little wobble somewhere in the midst of what we're playing. So examples of wobbles might be something like this. A little mid-range on the F chord, where I'm playing root 9 fifth, root 5th on the G, and then maybe I would play root 9 5th on the A. So maybe this. And we could strum, we could arpeggiate, they both sound pretty cool. D. I'll play that little sus2 there, because that's quite good fun. Or do I play? I'm going to play that, that's nice. That's 3rd, root 9. That's going to be fun on my D. Let's check this out with the wobble layer. Wobble in the middle. Really good fun. Now that wobble just adds a little bit of movement to the middle of a track. I think it's super cool. And wobbles, I generally make an exception to my panning rule with wobbles. I don't mind wobbles being a little more up the middle or being a little bit more closely panned. If I'm going to double track them, you can maybe do tremolo on one side, vibrato on the other side. They work well with a very mid-rangey sound without too much top end, because otherwise it starts to disrupt what's going on with the hi-hats. So we like a little rounding off on that. Now, everything we've talked about so far has been based on studio stuff, but you don't just have to do this with studio business. This all works really well live too, which you can, of course, take these principles and just apply them to your live playing. If you have a song where you want to ornament a piece, I think was it Daryl Queen? I'm not sure. Somebody was asking, maybe Response Audio was asking about the way you might implement this stuff with a song with a singer. You know, the same deal live. Exercise your judgment. What you're trying to do in terms of the energy of the song. What is going on with the other instrumentation? Is it a time to lift things with an ostinato? Is it a time to thread an octave for a pop punky thing? Is it time to play a wobble for some atmosphere? A splang for some beauty? Whatever it is you want to do. What notes are you going to hit to elevate the chord progression? This is down to your creativity. I could spend the rest of my life teaching you exactly what each one does for exactly each chord, but I think the big principles are more important. We're very much teach a man to fish kind of candidates here. So folks, we've run clean out of time. We've got one more session together in this series on, I guess, pro guitar parts, if you want to call it that. So we've got that. That's going to be on next Monday, and it's going to be on crafting solos. So rather than improvising solos, crafting solos. How do you make a solo that works really well as a statement that will stand the test of the time? So let's say you're writing a song, crafting a solo. That's what we'll talk about next week. The following week, we've got a guest. And I won't tell you any more about that, but we've got a guest on our stream. It's somebody you will know, and a guitar player that I'm certain you will like. But we'll say more about that another time. Folks, I'm going to bid you adieu there. I'm going to play a little bit more lead over this track. It's a lot of fun, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is to do a few things. First of all, if you've enjoyed what we're doing here, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, share it with your guitar playing friends. Don't forget to catch it on the replay. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to whatever channel you happen to be watching on, whether it's Guitar Interactive, whether it's Lick Library, then go to the other channel and subscribe to that too. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps me buy new lights, which helps to make the whole place look a bit nicer, I think. It's a bit less distracting, perhaps just seeing a very brightly lit set of pickups back there or something. And also, don't forget to click the links down below where you can go and check out Michael Caswell's Pro Concepts course, which goes into great detail about all this stuff. Go to Lick Library, explore some more lessons, but here is the homework. Here's the homework for you, right? Go check out everybody's favorite backing track, which is available on Lick Library. It's on the YouTube channel too. It is the cinematic backing track in A minor. You know the one, right? I'm certain you know the one. It is the cinematic rock backing track in A minor. Go and listen to that and see how many of these tricks you can hear. See if you can hear the splang, if you can hear the ostinato, if you can hear the wobble. Go listen, you will spot them all, right? They're all in there, and that's how it's done. Right, folks, I'm going to bid you adieu. Let me just quickly get my actual cab back on. I think we shouldn't take too long to get that. Yeah, there we go. There's my my greenbacks. I'm a greenback guy. The guitar's really loud now, so let's pull that down. Thank you so much, folks. I will see you next week. Let's jam out a little bit more on this track because it's great fun. Let's see if I can remember how to solo after all of that rhythm guitar playing. Let's see. Thanks so much, folks. See you next week. Hi, my name's Nick Jennison, and it's my pleasure to announce that GI Plus, the exclusive lesson platform from Guitar Interactive magazine, is moving to licklibrary.com. GI Plus features a whole host of the best players and educators in the world, bringing you exclusive lessons on everything from metal to blues to fusion and everything in between. Want to level up your shred chops? Check out How to Play Fast by Andy James. Or how about sweep picking with Rick Graham? Or maybe country's more your bag? Well, how about a full-length country guitar course from Andy Wood? Interested in learning how to play over changes? Well, members get access to hours of exclusive lessons from Fusion Maestro Tom Quayle. Or maybe you want your playing to sound more soulful. Well, who better than Chris Buck to show you how it's done? Members also get access to every lesson ever published in Guitar Interactive magazine, including Michael Caswell's legendary Pro Concepts column. Or maybe you want to learn the secrets of the masters. Well, members get access to over 70 full-length tech sessions where our tutors painstakingly decode the styles of players like David Gilmour, Eddie Van Halen, John Petrucci, Larry Carlton, Slash, Tosin Abasi, Paul Gilbert, and many more. And you get all of this in addition to all of the amazing content on licklibrary.com, which includes note-for-note tuition of over 60 classic albums, weekly lesson uploads, a backing track library, and one-to-one player support. There has never been a better time to sign up than right now.